point about productivity is a really good one. It has an enormous effect on these long-term metrics that are being measured in the report. But they're also needed to deal with the short-term concerns that Australians are reporting. The inflation, for instance, that is pushing the cost of living so high up right now requires productivity reform in order to rein it in beyond simply jacking up interest rates in a way that really does harm households too. Let's move to talking about debt a little bit more. Debt is already having a huge impact, and the prediction that there will be a doubling of the share of GDP that's going to need to go to interest is really very concerning. But more than thinking just about it as dollars and cents, isn't this an issue of fairness to future generations? And the reason I would suggest that reducing debt is perhaps the most meaningful, if unglamorous, youth policy you could possibly have as a government, because we need to allow the future generations, as they come of age and become the people who govern, the opportunity and the flexibility to be able to deal with the problems of their time with enough budget leeway to do it. The debt situation being unaddressed denies our young people that opportunity. What should be done now to make sure we're not shortchanging today's young people as they become the custodians of this country?
Yeah, I mean, this is we talk about skiing, don't we? Spending the kids' inheritance. This is an egregious form of that. And there's a very simple thing. I'm sorry this sounds old-fashioned, Amanda, but we simply have to live within our means. And we've invented this phrase, it seems, the Treasurer Jim Chalmers has come up with this idea, structural deficit, right? That's the amount that's more that we spend than we have coming in taxation and other things. And this is a problem, right? Apparently, according to him, structural deficit. Structural deficit, Jim Chalmers should know, is just the government spending beyond its means. It's not tightening its belt. And COVID, when during COVID spending went up, okay, some people can say that's justified, but it hasn't gone down again. It jumped 2% as a proportion of GDP, and it's remained at that level. We cannot go on spending like this. It is not fair, and I hope that this report is really appreciated by the younger generations so that they can hold us and the government to account on this and say, look, this just is not right. We are not going to pay for your spending out of our taxes in years to come.
The report indicates that income support payments and subsidies and funding for education are expected to grow during the period that's been forecast. But because of the ageing population, the share of GDP that goes to those things actually goes down.
That's right.
Another way of looking at, to my mind, is... Oh, sorry, beg your pardon?
No, I was just going to say that's exactly right. And you hit this problem which, having countries like Japan, of a dependency factor where you've got an increasing number of people not working because they're pensioners or they've retired or they're in ill health or something, and a smaller number of people who are working. So that smaller number of people, through their taxes have to pay for more services. I think that's where we're definitely heading for. And this, as I say, was foreseen right back in the early 2000s, 20 years ago, in the first intergenerational report. But we've just closed our eyes to it. We've gone through this period when we've been relatively affluent, thanks to the mining boom and everything. We just thought this stuff doesn't matter, but it does.
What's a red flag about this observation from the report for me is that if we are maintaining fairly high levels of income support and education spend, but as a GDP proportion that's going down, really what that's saying is that the size of government and the cost of government is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's a problem. And so from a philosophical perspective, why is an ever-growing size of government something that is undesirable for Australians?
Yeah, that's a very big political question, isn't it? You must have battled with this in your time in the Senate. It is an enormous problem. People can see it's a problem when government starts growing too big. But nobody's got any appetite for pulling it back, really, politically. Campbell Newman's brief term as Premier in Queensland was an example of that. He tried to, he recognised that there was ballooning bill on public service wages and so forth, and tried to pull it back. But then nobody wants their hospital to lose one person, or everybody can. We all, I guess, think we benefit from government services, and we're very reluctant to see them reduce. The other thing, don't underestimate the power of the ABC in this, Amanda. The ABC are entirely self-interested in this, right? Because everybody at the ABC relies on a government handout for their pay packet. So they're very reluctant to argue for government to be any smaller.
I wonder if they're going to declare a conflict of interest. Nick, Thank you very much for your time and your expertise tonight. I appreciate it very much.